Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the Book Refuge. Alright guys, so we are starting early this year with some of the favorites videos. And if I'm able to plan this right, which I'm not always great at pre-planning super far ahead, I'll be honest, I like being a fly by the seat of my pants girl. Been doing that for many years now. But there are quite a few favorites videos that I love to do. They're, of course, always really popular. That's just how it is. People want to know the favorites of things, right? And so I'm hoping to do every Thursday in December is a favorites list. And if I'm able to do that right, will be cool. Sorry, I'm already thinking about how it's going to work out. But we're going to start off with one that I know many people anticipate, and it's going to be my favorite Mafia romances of 2025. And to be exact, my top 10 romances of 2025. I'm also going to tell you my two least favorite Mafias that I read, which is kind of fun because one of my favorites and one of my least favorites are by the same author, which is cool. Now, to be clear, well, not to be clear, to explain, because it's still based on opinion, of course, but to explain how I did this, I went through all of my spreadsheets that I have, yes, because each Google form that I fill out each month makes its own Google spreadsheet I can turn it into. So all the books I've read, over 300 so far, and I went through them and I highlighted all of the new Mafia reads that I read. Now, because I do a lot of rereads, you know, I've reread the Neva Altai books. I've reread some by J.T. Geisinger. What's another one? Oh, I reread some of Rena Kent's. So I've read more Mafia than this number I'm about to tell you. A lot more, actually. But I only picked the ones when choosing my favorites that were new to me once, right? Because I reread some of my favorites. So it wouldn't be fair if I had Brutal Vows by J.T. Geisinger on my top list when that's a 6-star read from a previous year, right? So when I went through all of the Mafia that I'd read this year, I had 18 that were new books to me. Okay, this isn't new to me authors, but new books. Like either they were new releases or there were ones that I was excited for. And out of those 18, it worked out really nicely actually, because I had 5 of them that I'd given 5 stars to, and 5 of them that I'd given 4.5 stars to, which is great. There actually weren't any that I had given, 6 stars to. So yeah, but this top 10 list has both my 4.5, which is almost a 5-star, right? Very little that I have to complain about, and my 5-star reads. So we have 10 of those to talk about. A couple other things to cover. I'm just going to tell you, there's one author in particular that steals the show, and you will see that. I'm going to go in order that I read them, not necessarily in like order of favorites, but they're going in order of how I read the 5 stars and then how I read the 4.5 stars. So that's kind of how it goes. But they're not numbered as in between the 5-star ones, I didn't pick a favorite. So anyway, as always, I'm making the explanation more complicated than it needs to be, but I'm just giving you, kind of the setup because that's how I plan to do it for the other favorites videos you're going to see, is I'm going to go through those sheets and pick the new books I've read. And then I will go through and see what the ratings are. But to kick this off quick, let's start with the ones that I didn't like, which I'm not really going to talk about, but just to tell you what they were. Because I had 2 3-star Mafias. And one of them was Reckless, or 3.5 star for one of these here. One of them was Reckless Obsession by Deborah Garland. And yes, I remember this. This one was Owen and Julian. And this was the one where they're like both lawyers and a plus-size heroine, and she's forced to work with him. And I just didn't really care for it because it was 100% less focused. Like truly, okay, not 100% because it wasn't an erotic romance or erotica, but it was very much focused on that. And as you will see, this is the author I said where I have one of hers in my favorites. Earlier in the year, I had read a 5-star book from Deborah Garland, and this just felt not great to me. Now, I do believe part of that reason is that Reckless Obsession was one of her backlist. She was getting made into an audiobook, because both of these I listened to with for the author agency is how I got ALCs of these. And Reckless Obsession was an older book of hers that was getting narrated, I believe. Not like old, but like from a previous series than this. Maybe I'm totally wrong about that, and it just didn't live up to it. I don't know. But I thought that was kind of the thing. But either way, I just didn't care for this couple, and I didn't love that one. So that was a 3.5 star one. And then the other one that I gave 3 stars, let's see if I have this. I, of course, have spreadsheets pulled up. And then there was Tragic Empire by K.L. Mann that I gave 3 stars to. And this was the second book in the, like, Moretti Empire or something. I can't quite remember. But I just had loved book 1 so much, and this book just didn't do it for me. But I've already downloaded book 3. I'm going to keep trying this author. This was a new author to me with her Hidden Empire was the first one. And I just thought it was kind of cute for a Mafia book once it got going. It had like a Mafia school, and it had kind of some insta-love, but it was also just so sweet. And then this one, I just thought the plot was way too complicated. It was too long and everything. So that was my least liked. And to be honest with you, because I rate so few books low, this is probably going to end up on my least favorite of the year, let alone on a least favorite Mafia. Because that will be one that's coming too, is my like least favorite of everything. So yeah, those are the 2 that I liked the least, which was kind of a bummer, but that's how it works out, right? That's how it works out. Okay, now let's get into my top 10 Mafia romances of 2025. And as I said, you're probably going to see a pattern emerge about which author I read the most new books from this year, at least in Mafia, and which author I love the most. And it's no surprise, but let's see if you pick up a pattern as we go through. So starting with the 5-star reads for me, the very first one, like I said, I'm just going to go in order because that's easier with my spreadsheets. But these first 5 were all 5 stars, and I just had such a good time with them. So the first one here is the Deborah Garland. So I read this one in March, and it was Deal with the Devil. And this one was, I believe it was book like 4 or 5 in this series too. I don't write the series down in my spreadsheet anymore. I wish that I did. But I know that this one was duet narration by Troy Duran and Lexi Evans. Love that couple. And this was Lachlan and Katya, okay? Yeah. So this one was book 4 in a series. And this one we had Katya, who her father is the Brava, and he was about to force her off to marry some, of course it's some icky old guy. That's always what it's going to be. We're used to it. It's fine. We're here for it. Well, we're not here for it, but like that's the setup of it. And then Lachlan O'Rourke, he I believe is at the he's at a party where I don't remember if it's the engagement party. I read this way back in March, so just forgive me for that. That's why I had to bring up notes. But I got sucked into it right away. And so he actually was someone who had wanted to be a priest at one time, but instead he had killed one because of some abuse that he saw happening. And then when Lachlan gets a look at her and he sees who she's going to be married off to, he decides that's not going to happen. I'm going to take her. And so her father can't force her to marry anyone. I'm going to marry her, but then I'm going to set her free and she can do what she wants. So he decides to take up this cause. Yeah. Is he doing a bit more than maybe he should? Is he going to cause problems? Maybe. But to Katya, this devil is her hero. And I just remember what stood out. So why this one was a 5-star, let's just say that, okay? Because the thing is that this one was a 5-star within the world of Deborah Garland for me. Because she writes some very, like, outlandish plot lines a lot of times. A lot of angst are in hers. A lot of, like, violence and lust-forward stuff, right? But with this one, Lachlan was so soft and sweet for her. He adored her right from the beginning. and he wants her dreams to come true. And part of that comes from the fact that, like, he truly wanted to be a priest, but he saw so much ugliness through, you know, when he had to kill one and what he saw as corruption, that he really became kind of this, like, celibate killer instead of, like, a celibate priest who would, you know, pardon criminals and things like that. And he wants her to be able to have her dream. But what is really beautiful is when, like, her dream changes a bit from what she thought she wanted to. Maybe she is willing to be with a man like this. So this one is a Bratva meets the Irish, and I just really loved how these two were together. So yeah, this one is book 4 in the Story of Royals. I feel like, if I remember correctly, this is one that would make the most sense if you start from the beginning. However, I love this one the most, and as most authors say, she does include enough information that if you want to start with the Deal with the Devil, you absolutely could. I think you'd be just fine. As with a lot of Mafia stuff, there is the politics is really the reason why you usually like to start at the beginning. But to be fair, this series is also a spin-off from another series, so why not just read this one and see if you like it, the one that was 5 stars, and then if you want to, you can check out some of the others, right? Okay, we got to keep moving along here. All right, another 5-star I had was, and the only entry to this top list, which I'll explain in a second, though, is Kiss the Villain by Rena Kent. All right, so good. Now, I will tell you that when I made this list, I'll just say it now, I had Beautiful Venom on there, but I decided to take it off because I don't think the Vipers really fits in Mafia. They are connected slightly through Kane, like through a cousin or whatever, but that one really more is like secret society, dark academia vibes. And don't worry, I will have another video about dark romance overall, because I did actually read a lot of dark romance this year that wasn't super tightly locked in with Mafia, and that overall dark romance favorites will feature Dark Cowboy. It will feature just like other secret society and stuff like that. So I haven't forgotten about the other Rena Kents that I read for sure. But anyway, Kiss the Villain, I really enjoyed this one. Now, from the time I gave it 5 stars, I have reread this one because I annotated it for someone, and I maybe don't love it quite as much upon reflection. There are a lot of beats in this one that feel like repeats of what happened in God of Fury. I feel like there's a lot of stuff getting repeated in here. This book also, though it is the start of a new series, it heavily repeats stuff that happened in the Legacy of the Gods series. In fact, this is still one of the children of one of those, you know, this one is Gareth's story, and he's the older brother of, is it Killian's older brother? Now I don't remember for a second. I need the map, but I think is it Gareth and Killian, or is it, yeah, I think that it is. No, it's not. It's the other one. Oh, now I can't remember his name. There's too many characters, and it so doesn't matter. But this one is an romance, and this one is about Gareth and what is it? It is Killian. I was right. It's Gareth is Killian's older brother because his name is Gareth Carson. And Caden Lockwood is a criminal who teaches criminal law. So he is someone who's done a lot of work for the family, and now he's working at this school. But their first interaction is the one that really gets everyone going, because Gareth has actually showed up at this party to drug and humiliate an enemy. And instead, while he doesn't get drugged, he does end up getting humiliated by Caden instead. And then as kind of like payback, Gareth starts stalking Caden, only Caden kind of knows that he's stalking him, and it's a whole thing. And guess what? They even adopt a cat together eventually. It's cute. Okay, it's cute. So anyway, I did a horrible job explaining this one, guys. I'm sorry. I've talked about it so many times this year, and my brain is jumping all over the place, but this one was one of my 5-star reads, even though now it might be a little bit more 4.5 or a 4. it still deserves its spot because there were still some very powerful emotional things in here. But again, they didn't all hold as much weight because it felt like we'd seen some of it before with the God of Fury. Okay, there we go. We got to keep it moving before I lose all brain activity this morning. Okay, When He Takes by Gabrielle Sands. So this was one of the ones I read during the Mafia Romance readathon. There's a couple of these favorites that I actually read during that time. And this one was the second half of a duet. So you really do have to start with the first with this one. And I believe I gave the first half like 4 stars. Because it was very interesting. It was like Mafia in a small town, okay? Because the hero in this one, Nero, he actually is disgraced and he's going to be killed. And instead, he fakes his death and he goes away to this small town to hide out. So hopefully his enemies won't find him. But he starts to find that small town living is pretty boring. And the only thing that's really perking his interest was his sexy little neighbor who keeps causing problems for him. Her name is Blake. And he just can't help but be interested in her. And as he gets to know her, he, doesn't fully lose all of his skills he had in the mafia. And he learns that she is actually the daughter of an MC. And she has tried to distance herself from that MC and be, removed from it and everything. And that's not quite as easy as it seems, for sure. Not as easy as it seems to be. And so in that first book, she feels like she's the one who needs to keep her past away from him. But, Nero, who's going by a different name at this time, he has other plans. So the first book was like okay to me, right? But it really was for me the setup for what happened in this book that really kicked it over the top for me. Because spoiler, not spoilers, eventually the truth is going to come out. She's going to find who he is and that, wow, he's just as dangerous as the world that I ran away from. I want nothing to do with it. But now she is locked in with him. And the only way to protect her is for him to reveal that he didn't really die, go back home to his city and beg for forgiveness and hope that if they won't have mercy on him, they'll at least have mercy on his new wife. Because yes, at the beginning of this one, he forces her to marry him, so at least she can have the protection of his capo when he gets killed, because he believes that's what's going to happen. But of course, this will have an HEA, so that doesn't end up happening. And this book, this duet, is also a bridge book, kind of, from the Fallen Men. Is it the Fallen Gods or the Fallen Men? I don't know, but from that 4-book series into the new Ferrero series. Sorry, I want to say Fierro because I just saw Wicked last weekend, but the Ferrero family. So yeah, I gave this 5 stars. I loved Nero and Blake, and I love that Blake didn't forgive him too easily, but she also had to come to account of like, she is just in the dark side of everything now, and it doesn't matter whether she loves Nero or whether she tried to escape it. She's always going to be pulled back in, and that's just how it goes. Best to accept it now. Another 5-star was God of Vengeance by Michelle Hurd. Yeah, I actually just read this one in October, and this one was the 5th book in the Mafia, Kings of the Mafia series. That's right. Though there's now a second Jenn coming in that series, and book 6 actually comes out in December, which I'm very excited about. So yes, I know I'm making these favorites lists a little bit early, but if that one ends up being a favorite, we'll just roll it on into next year, and maybe it'll be the first favorite of next year. Who's to say? But God of Vengeance was a story of I believe this one is Damiano. Let me pull up my notes. Damiano and Gabby. And this is another case of she's supposed to marry a really bad man. But in this case, the bad man is his own cousin. And Damiano gets brought to this dinner, and he's supposed to approve this marriage between his cousin, who's actually older than him, and this beautiful young woman named Gabby. Now, Gabby has been abused and starved and beaten and mistreated by her family because she refuses to bend to their will. And she is going to be married off to, I think Stefano is his name or something. And Damiano takes one look at this situation, which he's supposed to approve and just give his nod and say that it's okay for this alliance to happen. And he's like, nah, this woman, though he tells himself he's not interested in her, but this woman is too fiery and too fierce to be married off to a guy who's going to beat the life out of her. He's just like, it's not going to happen. And he's like, in fact, one of my men, she would make the perfect husband or perfect wife for him. And so instead of giving his blessing, he takes her with him when he leaves. Okay. Now she is terrified because she's been abused and she thinks something weirder is going to happen to her. But no, she just gets brought to his home and told to just hang out because he's trying to get a hold of his, man that he's going to marry her off to, only to discover, and we'll see this in, spoiler alert, another book on my top 10 list, that man he wants to marry her off to has already found a girlfriend that he's serious about. So now what's he to do with Gabby, who he rescued but didn't want for himself? And now she's in his home, making it feel all the feelings and being nice with his mama and winning him over. Well, the man, of course, is going to have to marry her himself. And it's going to be great because Michelle Hurd, she's about tied there with me with Neva Altai for how obsessed her men are and how much I love how obsessed they are. Okay, I love it. All right. And just as a reminder, the only reason there isn't a Neva Altai book on this list is because they were all rereads that I read this year, except for the most recent release, which wasn't my favorite one, so I didn't make it on this list. But Michelle Hurd sure made it on this list because she was also the fifth 5-star read I had was The Hermit by Michelle Hurd. Now, I just finished this one, okay? And I gave it 5 stars. I loved it. This was the start of another new series. I really got to pull this one up because I just finished it, so I can't recall their names. But this is a Mafia Empire book 1, okay? And this is a different alliance. Michelle Hurd likes to write alliances and stuff instead of like the family, but like alliances and mafia. And in this one, we have Grace, who gets kidnapped in the beginning of this book. Okay, so the very beginning, there's a party, and these guys bust in and start shooting everyone, and Grace is there with her sister, Kiara. And Kiara is the only thing she's really living for. She loves her younger sister, and Grace has been through hell to protect that little sister. And so she's able to get her little sister like hidden away, and she gets kidnapped and taken. And they're starting to beat her and torture her to get her father to sign over his weapons. Her father is in the illegal weapons trade. And her father refuses to do it, which, it's horrible to watch. However, her father called in some help, okay? So while this all happens in the first chapter, by the way, this is the opening of this story, all right? Dominic comes in a la a mafia Tom Cruise or Ethan Hunt, we'll call him his name, busts in and rescues her. And as a deal with her father, who they already are have worked together, Dominic wants in on her father's business. He's demanding a part of the business. Now, the father is very reluctant to give this, but he knows he owes this man a lot. All he has are his 2 daughters. And he agrees to to sign over. Give is a bit of a too light of a word. To give some of his business over to Dominic if Dominic also marries his daughter, Kiara. Okay? Because he's like, you're going to need an heir sometime. And if my family is able to link with yours, then I'll still be keeping my business in the family, but you'll get 50% of it. Now, here's the thing. Grace has actually already been married, and she was married to a shit stain of a man who beat and assaulted her all the time. And so after having barely survived that marriage, her husband being dead, of course, now, she's not supposed to have to marry anyone else. She saw to her duty. However, she still did do an arranged marriage, and her sister is supposed to get to marry for love, right? That was the plan. Her sister's supposed to get to marry for love. And the thing is, Dominic is a big, scary hermit of a man who lives in the middle of nowhere. And marrying Kiara off to her just sounds about the worst thing ever. And so Grace is like, no, I refuse to let this happen. I will take Kiara and run away. You can't do this. And the father convinces Dominic to stick around for a little bit while they work out the details. And every interaction that Grace and Dominic have, he becomes more and more fascinated with her instead. And he decides that she's who he wants as his bride instead. And so he makes her the offer. He's like, I'll leave Kiara alone. Marry me instead. And this is extremely traumatic for Grace because she's seeing herself being given away again. But at the same time, she would do it to save her younger sister as well. So these two end up married. But of course, it's Michelle Hurd, and he's absolutely obsessed with her and just wants to help her and help her heal in any way that he can. And it's beautiful. I loved it. I loved this one so much. I also loved the little bit of them living in the middle of nowhere too, because I really love kind of like, it almost has like isolated cabin story like mixed right in with this. I just loved it. So those were the 5 5-stars that I had, which again, those were all the ones that were new to me books. And I was quite behind on Michelle Hurd, which you haven't seen the last of her yet. Those were just the 5-star ones. So let's move into the 4.5-star ones, which meant they were all really, really close to being perfect for me. Okay? There's just a few little things in each one. But one here is His Juliet by Amelia Rossi. I love her books. These have great representation in them. The one from last year that I read was His Tesoro, which had a heroine who needed to use wheelchair aid. And this one we have a heroine who is agoraphobic and has a lot of trauma in her past. So the only places she goes is between her apartment and the place that she works. And I think she also will stop at a coffee shop along the way. Those are the only places she goes. But this bookstore she works at ends up being quite the scene of an interesting situation when our hero, Romeo, yes, this is a Romeo and Juliet story, literally. Well, not literally, literarily, I guess. Look at me just working on the fly there. Because he needs to hide from a crime he committed by hiding away in her shop. And she can't call the police on him, of course, so he does force her to sit with him the whole night while he's hiding out to make sure she can't run for help. He even orders food for them and everything because he's a very gracious captor. And after that night of holding her captive and sitting there with her, he finds himself deeply into her and now wants to find other reasons to show up at her place of work and sit with her. But what's crazy too is that, it was all fun and games really when he was the one who was holding her in this bookstore. But what happens when there are, feelings that develop and now he wants to take her places and do things with her. And he realizes her, her struggles, her mental illness can't be fixed just by loving a man and then, that fixes me. I'm now ready to leave my solitude or my safety or what feels safe. So I really appreciated how we looked at this. And again, there are a lot of secrets to come out. Again, this is a Romeo and Juliet retelling. And if you think about what that means about warring families and things, there are definitely some secrets that have to come out. So this one does also involve at a certain point, there becomes a forced marriage that has to happen. There's a lot of intense feelings and things going on. And I think this one missed the mark just a little bit because we spend a lot of time in the setup of the book. And I did like that. I mean, I liked how well they were knowing each other and all the feelings they were having. But then there was just something that felt a bit off about how it all worked out. See pretty pictures in the book. I just wanted a bit more explanation for things once it was done and everything. But overall, still very, very good. I think that this author got better with sticking the landing with this one than she did with His Tesoro. That one, if you know, that one got a bit wild. But I love this. And what's even better, I forgot to say this, these books are getting traditionally published, which is wild. There are so many Mafia books getting picked up to be trad-pubbed, and I kind of love it. I love that Mafia is getting a moment in trad-pub. There have been quite a few I've seen so far get picked up, so we'll see what it all ends up being. It's exciting. Finn by Melanie Moreland. So this one was Finn and Una. I've talked about this book oodles of time, so I won't go into it too deep here. But this one I consider a much like lighter type of mafia. Okay, this one actually takes place in Canada, and it is the Irish Mafia in Canada. And this is a part of a duet, but they each focus on a different man. And this is the same where Melanie Moreland last year did a Cosa Nostra duet that was about the boss and his first in command. And this is the same thing. And we have Finn, who runs these hotels and is also one of the heads of the mafia in the area where he is. And Una is actually one of his employees, but she's even more than that. But when we start the story, she's a lounge singer and she also works in his hotels. And we can tell that he's obsessed with her. He can't stop thinking about her. And she's very resistant to anything going on with him. And what we start to discover as we read through is that these two were actually deeply in love with each other. Let's not say they are deeply in love with each other, but there are certain things that are keeping them apart. And the question is, are those things that are keeping them apart, are they really as serious as they seem? Or is it just something that Una is making a bit of a bigger deal than it actually is? Who's to say? Who's to say? But as you start to unravel their history, I thought it was done very well. Y'all know I have been a very loud person about how I really don't love flashbacks. I feel like they're used far too liberally and too much as a lazy way of doing exposition without having to fit it into the story. But the way this one is done, the memories of their past come up when it's appropriate for them to come up. And it isn't a full chapter where we're in the past. It'll be like Finn is staring out the window and he remembers the first time he met her. And then we see, it was just done so well. I love the audiobooks for Melanie Moreland. This is narrated by John Lane and Maxine Mitchell in dual narration. They did a great job. And I just love Melanie Moreland. Her books in general are very comforting, but her Mafia books, even when they discuss like some deep trauma, just feel so warm and cozy. And the heroes are so soft under their shells. And yeah, this does deal with some dark stuff. So just because I'm saying it's like Mafia light, I mean, it's light on the Mafia politics and on like arranged marriages and drama like that. Like it's not that. It's just more of like a crime syndicate type thing where he's the head of some crime industries as well as having legitimate businesses. But that doesn't mean that there isn't some tough topics. So keep that in mind. Read responsibly, as I say. All right, next we have another Michelle Hurd. I told you, I read a lot of her, and a lot of hers ended up here for me. Was Hunted by a Shadow. So this is us going back in time a little bit with the, I talked about God of Vengeance. So this one, Hunted by a Shadow, is about Renzo and Skylar. And this is the one that I talked about this in my bonkers plot video, okay? Because this one involves our heroine needs a transplant. I can't remember what it was, if it was kidney or liver or whatever at this point. I don't remember. But she's literally dying on this list. And so her father ends up paying for a black market organ donation. Okay? Her stepfather too, which that was actually a sweet part of this whole dark story, is that like he became her dad when she was young and she loves him so much, and her mom has since died, and he still continues to love her as his own. And when she's sick, he doesn't have any way to help her except for he does have money. And so he buys this from her. Not, of course, really thinking, not wanting to know where these organs are procured from, shall we say. Okay? And so Renzo has a young cousin who's kind of like a brother to him, who is like a chauffeur for him. And one day, this boy, basically a boy, he's only, I think he's only 19 or something, he's very young, gets kidnapped and basically chopped up for his parts. An illegal organ ring has taken it. And so Skylar ends up getting one of these organs. Okay. And now Renzo, when he can't find his cousin, because this all happens very quickly, right? They take the guy out, they immediately take those organs and everything, and then they like dumped him somewhere, you know, missing all of these body parts, like horrific thing. And Enzo, they get a tip actually from a woman who's a nurse who discovered what was going on and recognized who this boy was. And so she knows, like, oh boy, this is a bad thing. And Renzo finds out what happened. So, of course, instant rage beyond anything he's ever felt. He's like, this is beyond anything. This isn't even, you know, drug deals or mafia business. This was just cold hard. This could happen to anyone. And because he was healthy and young and in the wrong place at the wrong time, this happened, right? Which, to be honest, that's a lot of crime does happen. Sadly, that's how it goes. But this was actually absolutely heartbreaking. And to get his revenge for this boy, Renzo decides he's going to find every motherfucker who got one of these organs, rip it out of them, and put it back with his friend so he can be buried with everything. But when he starts stalking Skylar, he sees this sick woman who has now been made well. He sees her grieving father. Of course, he doesn't spare two shits for this father at the moment. You know, it's definitely one of those of like, what if you were in the other position? Who's to say? But he starts stalking her, and, you know, he of course doesn't instantly forgive this, but he decides he wants to torture her a little bit. So he ends up kidnapping her and threatening to rip out the organ. Because again, she didn't know how she got it. She just thought it was finally time to get one. And that they were like that she made it to the top of the list and could get one. But he kidnaps her and brings her to his home and kind of forces her to be his cook. She's actually a chef and everything. And he's like, if you step a toe out of line, I'll kill you and take the organ back. And at that point, you know, we kind of know, all right, if he's going to kill her, he was going to kill her right away. But he definitely does psychologically mess with her a little bit, because he also is like, I'm continuing to stalk your father. And so not only would I kill you, but I'll kill your father. So there's this game we play. But anyway, enough of that. I love this one because it was so unique. I hadn't read anything like this before. And again, it was another Michelle Hurd who, her books are just so easy to digest. I just love them. I gobble them right up. And this one also just felt like really beautiful by the end of it too. Like, I don't want to spoil it, but the thoughts on, the thoughts and feelings on, the boy who had died and the organs being used, and just like what that guy would have wanted done with him and things like that. Like, I don't know. I just thought it was really good. I loved it. Okay. Then we had Empire of Seduction by Mila Finelli. And this was book 2 in her, Empire in the New York State of Mafia. And this is also one I've talked about quite a bit. This one has Maggie. And this is the one that her family winery is in trouble. And it starts off, though, she has like a one-night stand with this guy. And that's important because later on, when Vito is trying to take over this winery, he discovers that the woman that he had one of his best nights with ever, she's actually the sister to the man he tricked out of 51% of his winery. Now, to be truthful, Vito did this in kind of a nice way. He was willing to, you know, buy them out of this. And he really wants to get a foothold in this business. That's what the family wants. They want winery to be on the line for money laundering as well as for profit if they can do it. And this winery is not doing well. That's the thing. You know, Maggie and her brother, they're not doing a great job with it. It's falling apart. And so having Vito take it over could actually be a relief. But the thing is, Maggie is way too fired up. It's kind of funny because they both think the other one kind of tricked them into their one-night stand now, when neither of them knew about the other one at all. But they both feel like they tricked the other one into it, which was kind of funny. But she just refuses to give up and let go, because this is all she has left of her family. And it doesn't matter if her brother gambled part of it away, she refuses to let go. And Vito just doesn't know what to do with this Hellcat, who he is so attracted to. He can't even think straight, and also just defies him at every turn. He doesn't know what to do about it. And I love reading it. Give it to me. I'll gobble it all up. Nom, nom, nom. I want every bit of it. Okay, every bit of it. Give it to me. So good. And yeah, this one was a 4.5 because of some stuff in the third act of it. And also, I loved her pushing back, but at a certain point too, I was like, girl, in all honesty, if your brother hadn't lost this place to him, it would have been to someone else, and they probably just would have killed y'all. So, you know, maybe don't be so high and mighty about all of it. It wasn't going to end well no matter what. They weren't really proficient in how to sell this stuff anyway. So, anyway, the very last one I have here is one more Michelle Hurd. So, now that we've reached the end, I'm about to show this last one here. You see what I mean at the beginning, that very clearly there was one author that I read so much of her stuff this year, and they just hit with me so well. Like, truly, I hadn't read much Michelle Hurd in the previous year. I'd only read like 1 or 2 of her books. Because there was one series that I didn't really care for. There was one series that was still connected with the Mafia school, and I was just over it. So I hadn't read her in a while. And then she went into this world she has, and I love it so much. And so I love the Kings of the Mafia and the Mafia Empire, and I just love it. I love it so much. It's so good. So, anywho, this last one here is Drawn to Darkness. This one was also a 4.5 star, and this one is about our heroine who is in poverty. Eden is her name, and Dario is the hero. Now, funny flashback. Dario is a bit of a softer, sweet soul. He likes the arts. I mean, he is still a capo, so he'll still cut a fool, like he will. But he is actually the one that Damiano thought that Gabby would be a good match for, because he is a bit softer, he is a bit gentler, and that is who Damiano thought would be paired good with Gabby. But turns out that Dario was a bit busy falling in love with the mysterious ballerina who's dancing at night in his studio. So Dario actually owns this ballerina company, and Eden is actually not a ballerina. She is a cleaner at this place, but she does have dreams to dance. And so when she takes her break at night, she cleans this place at night, she'll go into one of the empty studios and dance. And one night, Dario is there late doing some work, and he sees this mysterious ballerina dancing. And he then returns night after night to watch her dance. And when they finally speak to one another, she lies about who she is, because he doesn't know that she's an employee. She isn't normally dressed in a ballerina outfit dancing around while she's cleaning. She's pushing a janitorial cart and keeping to herself. And he just has no idea who she is. And he's afraid if she finds out that she's a cleaner, she'd lose this job. So that's why she first keeps quiet. But as he becomes more obsessed with her and wants to know her and wants to be a part of her life, there's another part of her that panics, because he's so far above her. I mean, financially, at least, in no other way. And he's not better than her. He runs Criminal Mastermind. It's not like he's a better moral person than her. But she is very afraid that her status as, you know, nearly homeless as she is, not living in a safe place, that would be a problem for him. And Dario, the sweet soul of a man, just loves this woman so much, and he's like, you can tell me who you are. Like, I just want to make a safe place for you. I want to love you. I want to be with you. Please let me do that. Okay, that is who our man here is. He is such a sweetie. Okay, he's such a sweetie. I can't handle it, you guys. I can't handle how much of a sweetie he is. Okay, so I just adore this one. Why this one wasn't quite perfect. Okay, and Michelle Hurd, this is not the first book she's done this in. This woman is not afraid to go to the dark place. Okay. there is a very dark third act in this one of some horrific stuff that happens to Eden. And it was just really hard to get through. I ended up skipping that chunk. And that's the story Michelle Hurd was going to tell. That's just fine. But it was a bit hard to stomach. And because I skipped some stuff, that's why that ended up as a 4.5. And there you are. So anyway, pardon this very rambly favorites list, but you know, that's what we're here for. We're just reflecting on what we like. And I love that 4 out of the 6 were Michelle Hurd. I'm sure there'll be many more in the next year that are as well. That Hermit book, that entire series is out. So I have downloaded The High Priestess, which is next, and then Craving Revenge comes out in December. So I'm going to be reading me some more Michelle Hurd. I just loved her. But some other favorites who made the list, right? Like Rena Kent, still love her books. Amelia Rossi, Melanie Moreland, Mila Finelli, Gabrielle Sands. They are all super, super solid for me. I can't wait to see what new Mafia authors I get to. And what I find next. So thank you so much for watching. I hope you will subscribe and join me for the whole month of December. I mean, forever after, of course, but for the month of December, when I go through my favorites, I'm planning to do a favorite dark romance overall, a favorite historical romance, a favorite fantasy, and then of course there'll be my top 10 overall video as well. So thank you so much for watching, friends, and we'll see you next time. Bye.